start out up here, but I will leave after I say my so I can see you.
Yes. Seems pretty quiet around the neighborhood too, out there. Not
Yes.
much action.
Well, we hope some more people show up. Welcome. Welcome to morning devotions here at Timbercrest on this Labor Day, September 4, 2023. I am Marie Willoughby. We are very glad to have Doris Carpenter back on the piano with us today and Tim Ritchie Martin operating the camera and the sound. Our speaker this morning is Kim Ebersole. She's been a resident here at Timbercrest for over a year, maybe 2 by now, and she will tell us more about herself, and the morning is yours, Kim.
As we prepare our hearts and minds for worship this morning, hear these familiar words of Jesus in a new way, reading from the Message, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Our hymn is number 5 in the blue hymnal. There is a place of quiet rest. Number 5. When I was first asked to share some thoughts with you this morning, I thought, well, it will be Labor Day, the first Monday of September. This day has been set aside to recognize the many contributions workers have made to our country's strength, prosperity, and well-being. I could talk about work and also about our need to take a break from work. And so I began to work on today's meditation. Now, our culture places a high value on work, but unfortunately, little value on true rest, on taking a break and focusing on renewal and restoration, on hearing and heeding Jesus' invitation. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. We place little value on practicing Sabbath. And yet we know we need rest, and we shouldn't feel guilty when we do take a break. But that little voice that society has drummed into my head that says work continues to make me feel guilty, even in retirement when I take a rest. And it's hard to rest when I feel the need to get up and do. Fortunately, recently came across an idea that helps me reframe that work rest dilemma. Nicola Jane Hobbs, a lifestyle coach, says instead of asking, have I worked hard enough to deserve rest? Ask, have I rested enough to do my most loving, meaningful work? Have I rested enough? Not have I worked enough, but have I rested enough? It invites us to shift our way of thinking, to value Sabbath and embrace Jesus' invitation to rest. What a unique concept. There's also a shift in the air and in the light right now as a busy summer ends and what promises to be a cooler and slower paced autumn begins. Can you feel it? Can you see it? It seems fitting to heed that shift and take a long weekend to rest and relax from our work, whatever our work is. To claim some time for Sabbath that will help bring about renewal and restoration. To ask myself and ourselves, have I rested enough to do my most meaningful work? Most of us have worked for many years, and some of us continue to work in retirement in one way or another. As I thought about my work over the years, and in particular my last position with the Church of the Brethren denomination, I had kind of an aha moment. What was I doing on Labor Day when I was director of family life and older adult ministries for the Church of the Brethren? Well, every other year on Labor Day, I was at Lake Junaluska in North Carolina for the opening day of the denomination's National Older Adult Conference, more commonly known as NOAC. As the denominational coordinator of the conference, I'd worked long and hard to make 6 of those NOACs happen. And in a serendipitous moment, today just happens to be the opening day of NOAC 2023. So, what I would like to do, rather than to continue to explore the work rest quandary, is to share some special moments of NOAC that stand out for me. First, let me give you some background about NOAC. The conference grew out of the Church of the Brethren's 1985 Statement on Aging, which includes this affirmation: all life is a gift of God. Aging, the living out of that gift, is a lifelong experience. Aging is an interrelated process involving social, spiritual, psychological, and biological dimensions. The Church of the Brethren envisions the church as a nurturing, supportive community which regards older persons as growing, learning, and contributing members of family, church, and society. And so the idea of a conference for older adults was born, with the first NOAC occurring in 1992. Called Say Yes to Years, the gathering took place in North Carolina at the Lake Junaluska Conference Center, a spot that might have been familiar to those who had attended 1958 National Youth Conference there. Every NOAC since that first one has been held at Lake Junaluska, a truly beautiful and restful place to gather. Have any of you attended a NOAC or visited Lake Junaluska? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. My first NOAC was in 2006. I had never been to a NOAC, but my dad and stepmother, John and Marie Ebersole, had attended since the beginning, and they raved about what a great experience they had. Now I would get to go. I was new in my position with the church in 2006, and NOAC was just a few weeks away. Someone had submitted a design for the backdrop of the NOAC stage, and it was my task, along with Don Fetcher, who was later to become chaplain here at Timbercrest, to paint that design on a huge canvas. Now, painting while standing on ladders is a good way to get to know someone. And Don and I had a great time talking as we painted and as we tried to match our painting styles with the others. In the end, it all came out well, and I had made a good friend in my colleague Don. And that September, I got my first taste of NOAC and learned for myself how special it is. Somewhere along the way of planning NOACs, I wrote the NOAC purpose statement, a version of which still exists today. NOAC is a spirit-filled gathering of adults age 50 and older who love learning and discerning together, exploring God's call for their lives, and living out that call by sharing their energy, insight, legacy, and faith with their families, communities, and the world. Now, planning NOAC was a responsibility that I took pretty seriously, and I treated it like the sacred opportunity it was to create 5 days of activities, worship, presenters, workshops, recreation, and times for rest and renewal. But just in case I found myself taking my task all too seriously, I only had to remember what my friend Dana Dernball once told me. Tana said, "Really, all you need for a successful NOAC is a line of rocking chairs along the lakeshore and lots of ice cream for people to be happy at NOAC." Well, I don't know if Tana was right about that, but I knew NOAC participants loved NOAC and they delighted in hearing top-notch presenters, whether they were from the Church of the Brethren or beyond. Making connections with brethren preachers and speakers was fairly easy, but I was just always amazed at how easy it was to pick up the phone or send an email and connect with people that I consider to be pretty famous. Most of those famous speakers were glad to be invited to share at our conference, and NOAC attendees were receptive to and appreciative of all our presenters, famous or not. People who attend a NOAC often share how the conference impacted their lives, but what I wasn't prepared for was how NOAC sometimes impacted our speakers. I remember talking with Rachel Freed, a presenter at the 2009 NOAC, with the theme Legacies of Wisdom, Weaving Old and New. Rachel is the coordinator of the Legacy Center, where she guides individuals and groups to create spiritual and ethical wills for their families, aimed at passing on their beliefs and blessings to future generations. I knew her message would fit perfectly with that year's theme and be well received by our participants. What I couldn't have foreseen was how Rachel's experience at NOAC would personally impact her work and her life. Rachel was so impressed with what she found at NOAC that she decided to stick around for a few extra days. And she readily made friends with people there and joined in the activities. Until then, much of her professional focus had been on women's legacies. But she said she realized at NOAC that she wanted to broaden her focus to include men who also had stories to share. She renamed her organization Life Legacies to reflect the impact that each person can have on future generations. and she updated her 2003 book, Women's Lives, Women's Legacies, in 2013. Freed writes, "By then, I was completing a totally new book, multi-generational for both genders and all ages. Your Legacy Matters," the name of the book, holds much of my learning in the decade between the two books. I believe her 2009 NOAC experience was instrumental in influencing that shift. Another presenter who was deeply affected by appearing at NOAC was religious writer Phyllis Tickle, who spoke at the 2013 NOAC, Healing Springs Forth. When I spoke with Phyllis on the phone, I told her I was aware of the popularity of her then recent book, The Great Emergence: How Christianity is Changing and Why. But what I was really inviting her to speak about was her book, The Graces We Remember: Sacred Days of Ordinary Times, Stories from the Farm in Lucy, Tennessee. I wanted her to speak about that and her other writings of that genre. She was surprised and touched that we wanted to hear from her older works, because most people at that point were asking her to talk about the Christianity books. And we talked about how stories can be healing. As she began her NOAC presentation that morning, she shared how much it meant that we chose that topic because it was so dear to her heart. Little did she know that what she spoke about that day would influence the choice of our 2015 theme, Then Jesus Told Them a Story. This year's NOAC theme is God is Doing a New Thing. As people gather at Lake Junaluska today and throughout the week, they will experience renewal through connecting with friends, being challenged by speakers and preachers, enjoying the beauty of God's creation, and spending some time in relaxation and rest. Through the generosity of NOAC and the Fellowship of Brethren Homes, we here at Timbercrest will have the opportunity to see and hear some of the main events at NOAC. They'll be shown here in the chapel, and we can access them on our own computers. It will give us a flavor of NOAC, and as we sit and relax and listen and ponder, it will provide us with a bit of much needed Sabbath time. I hope you take advantage of that opportunity. Now, as our benediction and blessing today, I share these words by 2009 NOAC speaker Rachel Freed. May this time in your life as elders be a time of wonder, of gratitude, of renewal, of connection and contribution. Your wisdom and blessing are shared in ways you can't ever imagine. May it be so. Go and be a blessing. Amen.